Tonight we had an officer-involved shooting. It involves an officer with the Memorial Villages Police Department. So this is what we know. At approximately 2:45, 2:46 this afternoon, a call came in with a car that was parked in front of some mailboxes looking suspicious with some people in front of it. Memorial Villages was called. They responded to the scene and observed that it did look suspicious. It was a male, a female, and a 9-month-old infant. They conducted investigation and observed a lot of mail in the vehicle that was opened, and it appeared that the suspects in the vehicle, the male and female, had been stealing mail and going through it. So subsequent to the rest of the investigation, they went to arrest the male first, to at least handcuff him so they could conduct the investigation, and the male managed to struggle with them and broke free and run. The officers pursued, struggle ensued. They used a taser and was able to get the suspect in custody. Upon getting him in custody, by their protocol, they called for an ambulance to come and check on the suspect. And the ambulance paramedics said that he had an elevated heart rate, so they immediately transported him to the hospital here. The suspect was treated here at the hospital and was under constant guard and supervision by law enforcement while he was here. He was released approximately 9:30 back to the officer. So a female officer was the officer that had the duty over him at that time, took custody of him and began to escort him out of the hospital and walk him back to her patrol car. At some point when they got to the patrol car, the suspect was handcuffed. She went to move to get him in the vehicle, and there was another struggle and a fight that occurred there at the patrol car, and it was just him and her, and he's a lot bigger than her. He managed to break free, and we don't know if it happened there or if it happened after he broke free and ran to the ultimate place where he was located, but he managed to slip out of the handcuffs. And it's important to note this because when the suspect was tased the first time, he was already in the process of when he was caught in the field, he was already trying to slip out of his handcuffs. So it appears that he's done this more than once, but somehow or another he was able to slip out of a handcuffed, so he was no longer handcuffed as he fled her the second time after the second struggle between him and her. And then she managed to locate him in a parking garage just over here behind our right shoulder, where you can see the tape set up. There was another altercation. She tried to get him in custody. There was a fight that ensued, and reportedly the officer had her firearm out. There was a constant struggle between the two of them. Her radio was tangled up with the suspect had the radio, and there was some type of struggle or pulling against each other. And at some point, he reached for her firearm, and subsequent to that, she fired what we know it was at least 2 rounds that struck the suspect. The suspect went to the ground pretty much after that, but continued to struggle even while on the ground, but probably more because he had been hit by 2 rounds. The officer called for help, or had already called for help, and help was already on the way. And she started to try to take the other handcuff off of him and take care of him. It appears that's reported as what she did. Another officer showed up to help her control the scene and guide ambulance personnel in. Ultimately, ambulance personnel were able to come and treat him and move him back into the hospital for treatment. Unfortunately, he passed away due to the wounds. What we know about this case is that the female, we've confirmed that she did have warrants out of Burleson County for theft of mail, and those at least 5 warrants for her arrest. And so this appears to be something that they've been doing before. In addition, the 9-month-old that they were with custody has been given over to CPS for the child to ensure the child's care. In terms of the race of the suspects, we simply don't know. They appear to be white male and white female, but they had foreign passports, so we really can't determine exact ethnicity other than they just appear to be white or potentially Middle Eastern. We just don't really know at this point. And we haven't been able to identify them because we don't have good identification on them, and that's going to take further investigation to do. This is an ongoing investigation. It's a preliminary investigation, It's going to be a collaboration between our department, the Houston Police Department, because it happened in the city of Houston, and our homicide and our our SIU unit will be doing the investigation, along with Memorial Villages. We'll also be conducting an investigation into this officer-involved shooting. Again, at this time, we don't have a whole lot more information. There was a body camera. The female officer was wearing a body camera, but during the struggle, the body camera came off, so we do not know how much of the incident was captured by the body camera. It looked like it went on for a while again because her radio was off and on the ground, and the suspect, I believe, had it at one point, and it was just a long, protracted altercation, it looks like to us, from what we can tell so far. With that, I would like to offer up Chief Schultz if he would like to say any few comments, and then we'll take questions.
I'd just like to thank the Assistant Chief and Houston PD for assisting in this particular investigation. As the Chief said, this will be a multi-jurisdictional investigation. We'll work this investigation together, all aspects, the criminal aspect, the officer-involved shooting, and of course the administrative. We've had very good cooperation from the folks here at the hospital. They have security cameras as well that captured most of the interaction. We'll be investigating that along with the officer's body camera to do a complete reconstruction of the series of events that have happened. What's important to remember in this particular case is that this suspect actually fought with officers 3 separate times. At this time, we still do not know exactly who he is because we have multiple pieces of identification, including foreign identification that appears to be fraudulent at this time. So the purpose of the officer today, staying with him, she was going to take him and have him AFIS so we could get fingerprints to find out exactly who he is, as well as the U.S. Postal Inspection Service also has interest in this particular group of suspects for committing a plethora of crimes in Burleson counties and other places throughout Texas. So we did find quite a bit of mail and quite a bit of other pieces of identification to include credit cards in the suspect's possession, as well as a 9-month-old. They also were in possession of mailbox keys and lock cylinders that have been removed from mailboxes as well as a quantity of drugs. So the child is safe, she is in custody, and unfortunately the male succumbed to his injuries at the time of the shooting.
Any questions for either chief? Gentlemen, thank you very much.